Today's August 9th, and today I'm going to talk about the price of Bitcoin finally breaking the 200-day simple moving average, right? And I'll talk about why this is really important and where the price of Bitcoin may likely go from here. And before we begin, please read the disclaimer. You can pause this video as you read it. Okay, so Bitcoin finally broke the 200-day simple moving average, which is this blue line, right? And I said this is really important because in the past, Bitcoin had in a strong bullish cycle, Bitcoin has always stayed above this blue line, right? Like over here in 2015, all the way to the top of our last cycle in 2017, Bitcoin always stayed above this blue line. Yes, we did break below here, but we didn't close below there, right? So the fact that Bitcoin has, overshot there. The fact that Bitcoin has not only broken below the blue line, the 200-day simple moving average, but also stayed below for nearly 3 months now. That was very nerve-wracking because we weren't sure if this was going to enter a bear market or not. But I did reiterate in many of my videos that I did think that this was a mid-cycle bottom. But I did also provide advice as to how to trade this in case it did break below the 20,000, right? But thankfully, Bitcoin did hold above this Fibonacci support level. And we not only held this Fibonacci support level, which we held that support also back in our first correction in January, but we've also broken above the 200-day simple moving average, right? So what I want to see is I want to see Bitcoin hold above the 200-day simple moving average, which is this blue line. And if we close above this blue line, I think the probability of us going higher is a lot higher than us going down. Last week we basically flipped this. I flipped the 100-day moving average from resistance into support, right? These moving averages now are resistance levels. They used to be support, but since we broke below it, and they basically flipped into bearish postures, right? By moving into each other, and so now they are resistance. And this channel top was also strong resistance, and we hit this level. We pulled back, and then now we flipped that resistance into support by holding this level, right? And so what we want to see is we want to see the price of Bitcoin now break above the Fibonacci resistance level around 47,000, but also hold and close the day above the 200-day simple moving average, which is right now around 45,000, right? And right now the price is above, but the daily close will happen in a couple hours. So hopefully we're able to close above here, and we'll have a shot of breaking through our next Fibonacci resistance level around 47,000. What I don't want to see is I don't want to see Bitcoin come down and retest this level, right? Because we already held this support level over here by holding this level. So we come down and we not only retest this level, but we fail to hold it, we will likely come down to 30,000 again. And of course, the more we retest the support level, the more likely we are to break below, right? So right now, Bitcoin is looking really good. I want us to close the day and just continue up higher. Continue the bulls. I want to see the bulls continue to put pressure on the bears, right? Continue to push the price higher, and eventually, once we break above the Fibonacci resistance level around 47,000, I think 65,000 is definitely next. Now, two possible paths that I think Bitcoin could take. Either we break above strong and we pull back and hold support before continuing up higher, or I think we will find we will consolidate around the Fibonacci support level, so resistance level, before pushing up higher. So that's what I think is going to happen. Of course, I don't want to see Bitcoin coming down because I think that the probability of us continuing down lower is higher than if we fail to hold this level, right? We want to stay above the 200-day moving average right now, because in a bullish year, that is usually how the price of action of Bitcoin is above the 200-day simple moving average, right? Now let's look at the MACD. Now, in the beginning of this year, we basically entered a bearish divergence where we saw our oscillator, the MACD, come down, while the price of Bitcoin essentially was going up, and that was basically signaling that distribution was happening, right? That there was smart money was basically selling to the dumb money, basically, but now we're starting to see more of a bullish posture, right? We broke this downtrend with that nice rally over the last couple of weeks, and now the MACD has not only crossed into positive territory, but now we're printing positive green histogram bars. So the momentum has definitely shifted from the sellers to the buyers, and so that's very good. Same thing with the RSI. Right, the RSI was also going down while the price was going up. Bearish divergence, which led to a 55% correction in Bitcoin. But now we're broken above this downtrend, and we are back above the overbought line here, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because in a bull market, in a strong bull market, the RSI tends to stay around this overbought territory for a while, right? So as long as we continue the price continues to go up higher, I do expect the bulls to stay in control and continue the momentum higher. Right? We had a weekly close yesterday on Sunday, another green candle, which is really great, right? We definitely seeing the bulls starting to get into control again after this massive 55% correction. Right now, the MACD looks really great on the weekly chart. We're about to get a bullish cross here soon, which if it flips bullish, and not only that, but also the histogram bars are starting to get very close to zero. And once it starts printing green, we might get a nice rally that like we saw from October into earlier this year, where we saw this huge breakout, right? This massive breakout rally, and we might see something similar, right? We cross, we push up higher, and we see the MACD cross from red to green, and we might see a similar rally like we saw over here from October to April of this year, October of last year to April this year, but you know, from here all the way up to perhaps over 100,000, right? Perhaps over 100,000. And of course the monthly chart. Monthly chart looks really good as well. Last month we closed July green. I talked about how this is a bullish reversal candle, hammer, right? Reversal hammer, and we want to see this fulfilled by continuing up higher. And I do think that if we see this price action follow through, we'll see all-time highs by the end of September, maybe even earlier, right? Of course, looking at the monthly candles, we saw strong wicks at our Fibonacci support level around 30,000. So the buyers definitely were in control and buying these dips and keeping the bears from pushing it down higher, lower. So, and this is really important because in bear market years, we tend to see more red candles than green candles, right? And also consecutive red candles, like 2018, 2014. But in bull market years, right, strong bull market years, 2017, 2013, we not only see more green candles, but we see more consecutive green candles. So we want to see basically more green candles from here on forward. We don't want to see 3 consecutive red candles again, right? We want to see more green candles and red candles. And of course, people have been talking about how this could be a double top, like we saw in 2013. And I also talked about this in previous videos, how we had a nice run here, mid-cycle correction, and a price going up higher. So it does look like that's going to happen this time around. So I am pretty excited to see where Bitcoin can go in this cycle, and hopefully we get above 100,000, maybe even above 200,000 or 300,000. But trying to time the top, it can be tricky sometimes. So thankfully we have some indicators that can help us try to figure out where Bitcoin can potentially top in this cycle by the end of this year, right? So fear and greed index is at 65 right now, which is really great because we've been staying below this level for a while. And even though I said in the previous videos that these are generally, when the fear and greed index is very low, it's generally a good time to buy Bitcoin, right? Historically. But the fear and greed index can stay very low in a bear market, right? So for over a year, this fear and greed index was very low. But right now, this breakout has not only taken the fear and greed index into greed territory, but also pretty high up, like 74, right? And this is a lot higher than any of the bull market bounces that we had during the bear market of 2018, right? What am I talking about? So in 2018, Bitcoin didn't just go straight down in the bear market, right? It kind of like bounced around and kind of faked some people out with these rallies. And these rallies are pretty big, like, you know, some of it was like 50%. And but eventually it broke down and continued out lower, right, in the end of 2018. So the question is this going to be also a bull market rally that's a fake? It's essentially a bull trap that traps the bulls, and basically they buy up here and it continues down lower like we did in 2018. And I do think the probability is a lot higher that this is not, that this is actually a mid-cycle correction that will continue higher. And the reason is, if you look at the fear greed index, this bounce, the greed index is a lot higher. So this is signaling that this is probably an actual true breakout, like we saw in well, this chart doesn't go back correct, but it's like in 2019 we had a strong breakout rally, and yeah. So this is what I think is. I do think that this will continue up higher instead of bouncing and then continue down lower into a bear market, right? Another indicator to look at is the hash rate. Hash rate basically signal a peak on April 14th, which is basically the all-time high. As you can see, April 14th, Bitcoin peaked just under $65,000. And this happened because, of course, China will crack down on the miners, but a lot of miners in China are actually moving overseas and setting up shop again. So we're starting to see the hash rate recover. Not only that, but also a lot of other miners in other countries, especially North American miners, they're starting to steal more of the market share of the hash rate, right? Because there's less competition as the hash rate comes down. and the difficulty goes down. But the hash rate has basically started to bottom and recover. So as long as the hash rate continues to recover and continue higher, and hopefully we get a nice strong breakout as there's more miners coming back online, especially the Chinese miners that have been forced to go overseas to set up a shop again. Hopefully we'll see the price of Bitcoin fall through. We should see the price of Bitcoin fall through, right? Because Bitcoin is correlated with the hash rate. When the hash rate that is higher, the Bitcoin network is more secure, making Bitcoin more valuable, right? There's more people processing transactions and validating transactions. So we definitely want to see the hash rate continue to recover, and that should be a leading indicator of the price of Bitcoin continue up higher as well, right? Let's look at some other indicators. The 2-year multiplier, right? 2-year multiplier signals overbought. When the price of Bitcoin goes above this orange line, it becomes shaded, right? And the 2-year multiplier signals oversold. When the price of Bitcoin goes below this green line, it becomes shaded green. So generally speaking, if you had bought Bitcoin in this green shaded area, sold it in the red area, green, sold it in the red area, right? You would have made a lot of money. Now you don't have to perfectly time the top up. Excuse me. You don't have to perfectly time the top or the bottom. But if you just bought or sold in these general shaded areas, you would have made a lot of money, right? Now, what is this price action telling us right now? We haven't even broken above this line, so it has not even signaled a top, right, or even overbought. So the fact that we're coming down and starting to recover, in my opinion, this is basically just a mid-cycle correction, and it will continue up higher. And then, now the great thing is that as Bitcoin continues to move sideways and to recover to all-time high, this upper boundary is going to continue up higher, right? And what that means is that when Bitcoin eventually hits this, and Bitcoin has historically not only broken above it, but overshot it by a lot, right? So this upper boundary is at 100,000. So what that suggests is that by the time Bitcoin hits this upper boundary, and this will probably be at like 150 or 200,000 when it hits that level, right? It will not only hit that level, but it will go a lot higher. So that's just going to signal a potentially higher overbought territory, or signal to sell at a higher price, perhaps in the $300,000 or even $400,000 range. But we're going to have to see, and I'll definitely update you as this price action develops, and we'll get a more realistic prediction of where the price gets top as Bitcoin heads up to all-time highs and also towards this upper boundary, right? Pi cycle top indicator also predicts the top. I think what we're seeing right now, so it did predict the mid-cycle top right here in April, right? And of course, I thought it was a false positive. I'll admit that I was wrong. But now that I know that this can predict the future, right, remember this was created in 2019. So I didn't know that if this could predict the future, or if it was just designed to fit conveniently in the past, right? So now that we can know that this can predict the future, I'll definitely be using this indicator to time my exit by the end of this year, which is where I predict the price of Bitcoin will peak. As you can see, this indicator has done a very good job predicting the tops when the lines basically cross, and we get this dotted area, right? So this is 2013. We had two cross, right? We had the mid-cycle correction, and we also had the final top in 2013. We also have 2017 top over here, and over here right now in 2021, I do think that we are seeing something similar to 2013, where we have a mid-cycle correction and another top. So we're probably going to see two crosses this year, right? And the great thing is that right now, Bitcoin has actually broken above this orange line. As you can see over here, it's actually broke above this orange line. And that's actually a good thing, because when the price of Bitcoin gets above this orange line, it's generally a time to enter the market, right? This is generally a bullish signal, right? If you bought Bitcoin when it broke above this orange line, you would have made a lot of money. You might not have timed it perfectly at the top to sell out, but you still would have been a lot in profit, right? Even if you bought over here when we finally broke above this orange line, right, after plunging in the pandemic, you still would have been in profit even after this correction, right? Come down pretty low. Now, of course, Bitcoin has had many fake outs in the past. Like we broke above this orange line over here in 2018 and then failed to hold, and then we entered the bear market and plunged below. Same thing in 2014, right? We broke above this orange line and then continued on lower into the bear market. So of course, we need to see more follow through. We need to see Bitcoin continue to go up higher, the price of Bitcoin continue up higher into the upper boundary of the green line. And once we break above the green line, things will likely get more parabolic like we've seen in the past. And these lines will likely cross again and signal an exit point. But that's probably going to be above 100,000, right? Because right now, what we've seen with this correction is these bands are starting to widen. So when the price eventually goes above, these bands will have more room it'll need to have more room or more time for it to cross back into negative territory, right? Because remember, when the orange line crosses above the green line, that signals a sell signal. So the orange line is very far from the green line. So we need the price to go well beyond 100,000, right? Before this indicator signals a sell signal. So that just makes me more optimistic about where the price of Bitcoin could be headed by the end of this year. And of course, I'll definitely be using this indicator to time my exit and update you guys as the price action develops going forward. Pull multiplier, of course, has signaled historically overbought territory when we enter this shaded area, right? We haven't even hit the shaded area yet. So, of course, another indicator saying that, hey, this is likely a mid-cycle correction instead of the top and entering a bear market or anything like that, right? So a lot more upside to go. Golden ratio multiplier. Usually this will predict the top when Bitcoin goes high enough, usually above the purple line, it'll start to print this dotted line. And that dotted line gives you an idea of where the top could be when things start to get parabolic, right? Now we did break above this purple line, and but we weren't able to hold above this purple line. So a dotted line hasn't been printed yet, but eventually when the price recovers and goes above this purple line, a dotted line will be printed, and that'll give us an idea of where the potential top could be in this cycle, right? In a bear market, we failed to hold this orange line, which is the lower boundary of this indicator, and then we basically plunged below. This is 2014, 2015. This is 2018, early 2019, and of course during the pandemic, we plunged below. Now we did kind of go below for a brief moment this year, but we actually very quickly recovered, and now we are back above this, back above the orange line. So for now, this is telling us that this is a mid-cycle correction. As long as we don't cross below the orange line again and continue on lower, this indicator is not telling us we're in the bear market, right? And also, like the other indicators, as the longer Bitcoin goes sideways and continues to recover, the higher these upper boundaries are going to be, and that's going to give us a higher potential top as Bitcoin crosses above purple and the purple line and the dotted line begins to print. So another indicator telling us that this is likely a mid-cycle correction and that there's more upside than downside. Z-score, of course, has spiked above this shaded area very violently, parabolic move during the cycle tops in 2013 and 2017, and we haven't had this spike up into the shaded area yet, right? Not even close. So another indicator telling us that we are likely in a mid-cycle correction rather than in a bear market, and that there's still a lot of upside. We haven't even reached the potential top of this cycle yet. Of course, last we're going to go with the stock-to-flow model, which is everybody's favorite, the famous stock-to-flow model. So this red line tells us where the average median price should be, right? So right now we are below this, and usually Bitcoin is it'll overshoot this level, right? Like we saw in 2013 and 2017, we overshoot this level before reverting to the mean during a bear market and basically stabilizing along this red line where the mean of the price should be, right? And so here we saw in 2017 and of course in 2018, 2019, right? We tend to stabilize after overshooting on the upside into the downside. So right now, Bitcoin hasn't even broken. We haven't even touched this red line around 80,000, let alone broken above. So when we break above, historically, Bitcoin tends to go up a lot higher to overshoot before correcting in a bear market to downside. So, I mean, this is really saying that Bitcoin can go easily above 200, right? Now, I don't know if it's going to peak at 300, maybe in 400,000, but we'll see as the price action develops. The deviation from the mean, which is what this line represents, it shows that we're seeing very similar line price action as we saw in 2017. In fact, we bottomed around July in 2017, just like we bottomed here in July of this year, of 2021, right? So very similar behavior in this variance chart in terms of our variance from the model, right? And so what this is saying is that just like we saw this deviation very similar to July of 2017, and during this time, this was basically a correction, and we had all this upside, right? And so this is suggesting that there's so much more upside to come throughout the rest of this year, right? Because we have all this upside to overshoot this red line into $3, $4, or even $2, $3, or even $400,000, right? So stock to flow, predicting even higher prices. So all these indicators that I went through They're basically telling us that we're still in a mid-cycle correction and that we're nowhere near the top, right? And that there's so much more room, so much more upside beyond our previous all-time high around 65,000. And so right now I remain bullish on Bitcoin, but I want to very quickly go over some of the possible bear scenarios, right? I talked about this chart back in June, how in a bear market, even we tend to have times where we have this nice fake out where we touch the weekly 50-day moving average, which is a silver line. We bounce above. Everybody thinks it's bullish again, thinking it will go up, but it ends up falling down, breaking below and then staying below and continuing down lower below the silver line, the 50-day simple moving average on the weekly chart, right? Same thing in 2018. We touched this, bounced above, and failed to hold this level and continuing down lower. So right now, we're in a very similar scenario in which we touch this silver line, right, and bounced above. And the question is, are we going to see something similar that we saw in 2014 and 2018, where this price fails to hold and then continues down lower, right? I do think the probability of us going higher is a lot higher than going lower, but that's just something to keep in mind. That's a possible bear scenario, right? So we want to keep our eyes open on the lookout to see if the price will come down and retest the silver line again, right? That's why I didn't want to see the price come down again, because if the price comes down again, we will likely continue down lower. But for now, I do think that there's just so much strong momentum pushing up higher, so I think this will likely continue up higher. But of course, that's just something to think about, to watch out for. Another thing is also the dollar index, right? The dollar has had a strong rally in the recent days, and we talked about in the past how when the dollar is strong, Bitcoin is in a bear market, right? In 2014, we had this epic rally of the dollar, right? 2014 and 2018, we had strong price action in the dollar, but during that time, Bitcoin was in a bear market, right? 2014, Bitcoin was in a bear market. In 2018, Bitcoin was in a bear market. Now you look at 2017 and 2013, Bitcoin had these massive rallies, right? And look at how the dollar behaved. The dollar was weak in 2013, especially near the end of the year, right? When we had that massive rally in November of 2013. And 2017, the dollar basically was in a downtrend the entire year. And of course, we had a strong bull market in Bitcoin in 2017. So right now, it looks like the dollar is trying to find a bottom here, and is testing this resistance level, right? 1, 2. So the question is the dollar going to break above, or is the dollar going to fail to hold this resistance level, to break above the resistance level and continue down lower, right? And so this is another potentially bearish scenario that could put downward pressure on Bitcoin, right? So I think it's important to talk about different scenarios that could happen, but we don't want to just be blindly optimistic, right? I'm very bullish on Bitcoin. I've been buying a lot of spot positions and call options on miners, Riot and Mara, as they of course begin to steal more of the market share from the miners, the hash rate, now that China has their ban, right? And of course those mining stocks have done very well. The options have done very well. But it's important to look at all scenarios, even the bearish case, right? But having said that, having gone through all the indicators that I talked about in this video, right, all these indicators, I do think that the probability of Bitcoin going up higher is a lot higher than it going down lower. So just to summarize, I am bullish. I've been bullish for a long time. But for now, we want to see Bitcoin stay above the 200-day simple moving average, like we did in 2015 to 2017, right? Right now, Bitcoin is above it, but the daily close in a couple hours, so we want to see Bitcoin close above 45,000, which is where the blue line, the 200-day simple moving average is. The next resistance is going to be 47,000, which is this Fibonacci resistance level here. We had support here, but we failed to find support here. So now we flipped that support into resistance. So it's going to be strong resistance of the 50,000. Again, just to summarize, I see two potential scenarios playing out. Either we have a strong break, pull back, retest this, and hopefully flip this from resistance to support and continue higher, or we trend this level, this Fibonacci resistance level for a while, eventually cultivate higher lows and just push up higher, right? Just absorb the supply off the market, right? Absorb supply from the bears and just push up higher. So those are two potential scenarios that I see happening. I don't want to see Bitcoin coming down again and retesting 40,000 again, because I think the probability is going to be a lot higher. Just to summarize, the reason why is that, remember, we had this channel high over here. The top of this channel was support resistance. We failed to hold right? So this turned to resistance, pushed down lower. Then we flip this resistance to support by essentially coming down, holding this level, and then pushing up higher, right? So I don't want to see the price of Bitcoin go down to 40,000 again. I want to see us close above the 200-day, fight to break above this resistance, Fibonacci resistance level, and then push up higher. And I think that if we can break beyond here, especially to 50,000, and I think the all-time high of 65,000 is going to be very easy, and we'll continue to go to 100,000 and beyond by the end of this year. And we'll definitely be using our indicators that we went over in this video to potentially time our exit or top. And yeah, so I'll definitely update you on the price of Bitcoin as the price action develops going forward. And yeah, thank you for watching this video. If you found it useful, helpful, informative, please like this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe for updates. I appreciate all your support. Thank you again, and have a great day.